Hey guys, so I wanted to talk a little bit about something that has really just kind of plagued my life since as long as I can remember, and that's social anxiety or social phobia, whatever you want to call it. And I'm just going to kind of give you my experience, and if some of you can relate to that, then that's great. But as long as I can remember, I've dealt with this. Even in first grade, I got a report card, and on it, my teacher wrote that Brad is a really smart kid. He's reading beyond his grade level, things like that. But I just can't get him to talk. He won't say a word in class. And it wasn't exactly that, but something to that effect. And it's something that I've just heard my entire life. Just kids in school, Brad, why don't you ever talk? Except for my close friends. And it used to really aggravate the hell out of me when I was younger. And if you get that same type of reaction, you probably feel the same way. Now, it's weird because my life growing up, my experiences, you wouldn't think would be those of someone that had such bad social fears. I had friends, I had many girlfriends, I went to parties, but I can really narrow that down to drugs and alcohol. I think that my social phobia it was almost fully to blame for me getting into drugs and alcohol. And I started with alcohol because it helped me, break out of my shell. I could go to parties. I don't know if kids even do that anymore, teenagers, but back then we used to have parties in the woods and stuff like that. And it would loosen me up, and I wasn't so scared to put myself out there. It got to the point where I was, taking a bottle of Captain Morgan to high school in my backpack and drinking it in the bathroom, cutting class and drinking it. And if I wasn't drinking, I was smoking weed. I was basically just self-medicating. And another thing that helped me have kind of a social life when I was younger is having three really close friends that I grew up with that were very outgoing. And I always had extroverts around me because if you have, two introverts, then nobody says anything. My friends, my girlfriends, they were always outgoing, and it just made me feel more comfortable. And the same with my wife now. She's a huge talker. She's the complete opposite of me. And like many people that are socially awkward, I feel completely normal in front of her and my family and close friends, which is a very small circle. So I had one friend growing up, and I talked about him a little bit in my intro video, Mike, who sadly passed away over a decade ago from an overdose. And he was really one of the, I would say, more popular kids in my area, and he kind of led me to hang out with everyone. And of course, I was always looking to drink or get fucked up somehow so I didn't have to live in my own head, because that's what it's like. Even to this day, I feel like my world is very internal. I feel like if I go to a gathering, I see people talking, having a good time, they're focused on what the other person is saying. And for me, I feel like 60% of my attention is on my inner world, thinking, do I look stupid, or what do I say next, things like that. And I've tried many things to kind of live more externally, but nothing really worked outside of being intoxicated. When I would drink or get high, I would just kind of shut down that inner world thinking, and I didn't care what people thought or whatever. The only other time where I feel like that is when I get really bad anger. In that case, I can snap really easily and I don't care about what anybody thinks. But once I calm down, then it comes back. I don't know if that's like a sociopathic issue or what, but one time I actually rammed into the back of someone's car because I thought they cut me off in a drive-through. So I've had moments like that throughout my life, but it's just a quick thing, and then I snap out of it. So another thing that I say often is I don't like people, and I don't like saying that because it sounds kind of snobby, but my wife is a hairdresser, and she genuinely likes meeting new people, hearing about their lives. She loves small talk. I can't stand it. And I'd rather have a deep conversation about addiction or poverty or whatever than some meaningless bullshit just to be friendly. I'm a very stick to myself kind of person. And I want the best for people. Don't get me wrong. I don't like hate people. I want to help them. I just don't feel like talking to them a lot of the times. I prefer to be alone or with the few people that I spend my life with. If I'm around other people too long, I just get really exhausted, and I feel like I just need to kind of recharge my social battery, which is pretty common for introverts. Now, another thing is I've never been one to be like pushed around regardless of social anxiety. I know there's a lot of socially awkward people that were picked on their whole lives. I think for me, it has to do with my surroundings and how I was raised. From my stepfather, who's literally been in 100+ street fights, been to jail and stuff, to my friends, which were kind of the same way. And I was taught just not to take people's shit, and that just always stuck, and you always stick up for your friends and your family. I also think that being locked up for 2 years, going to jail, it really helped my social anxiety. One of the few positive things I got from that, because I couldn't drink and I was forced to live with other people, and not just people, regular everyday people, but, pretty tough guys that were, you couldn't be too vulnerable around. So that kind of taught me a lot and forced me to be in very uncomfortable situations. So I'm weirdly grateful for, being sent to jail. And I think if I had it different, if I was in a different surroundings, maybe, if my family was more well off, we weren't so blue collar, maybe I would have been more of a nerdy kid that got picked on, sat in their room and played video games on Friday nights. I just had a different upbringing that didn't really allow that. Now, my daughter, she's almost 18, and she's like me. She has issues with social anxiety. She doesn't have that upbringing that I had. She is well off, and she has nice friends. At one point, she was worse than I was, and I was really scared that she wasn't going to be able to live a normal life. But as she gets older, now she has a job as a CNA. She's doing really well. She has a passion for nursing and helping people. So she's really growing up and kind of breaking out of her shell naturally. So I'm really grateful for that. Now, let's fast forward past all the drugs and jail and other crap. Having a normal life has had some obstacles with the way I am. I do joke and I say I managed to build $1 million business from my basement without really talking to anyone. And I started with, computer repair. I had to deal with customers, and that was extremely tough. And in my late 20s, when I started, I was actually more comfortable around other, guys that were drug addicts and convicts, ex-cons, over the normal everyday working person, because that's what I had lived around up until that point. I didn't know how to act or converse with just normal people, and it seemed boring to me. But I really pushed myself because I wanted to run my own business really bad. I had a record, so had tough times finding jobs. I got better at it over time. I started to learn to code and getting freelance clients, finding a process to go from meeting that person, that client, to getting them their project and how they wanted it. That was a painful process to kind of discover, but I did manage to do it. I also decided to challenge myself and work for a company as a developer, and that was really hard at first. But once I was comfortable with my team, it wasn't too bad. My true calling was when I started making tutorials and courses and just being by myself, being able to just create with no one breathing down my neck, no clients, just students and viewers that really like the way I teach. And that's where I found the most success and the most enjoyment in my career. It's the best gig for someone like me. I'm absolutely fine talking in front of a camera that doesn't respond or judge. And yes, I know actual people watch this, but that's after the fact, so it doesn't really bother me. I do know that I've missed a lot of opportunities, and even though I've managed to do well, I know that I could have done I could have been twice as more successful if I had better people skills and didn't have this problem. And there's been great opportunities for sponsors and conferences and all kinds of things that I would turn down because I would have to deal with people. And if I told you some of the stuff that I've turned down and why, you'd call me an absolute moron. But that's just how deep this has affected me. When I'm trying to work on it, I do have a counselor. I'm on medication that does help. But it's something that it's a lifelong struggle. And I just wanted to share with you guys because I've heard from a lot of you, and some of you have a similar type of story and way of thinking. So if you want to share, what helps you guys get through, if you do have issues in social situations, then leave it in the comments. And thanks for watching.